Now, you may be asking yourselves, with all the boxing going on at the moment, with so much going on in the sport, why am I making a video about Conor Nigel Benn? But I mean, to be honest with you, if it wasn't for people like Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, Michael Watson, I probably wouldn't have been a boxing fan. So for me, the idea that Conor Benn is turning professional at some point is really exciting for me. Now, we all remember the days of Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, Watson, and they were just fantastic days for us. I remember watching the fights and just being mesmerized by it all. Chris Eubank was just a dignified showman. He'd come in, he'd pose, he'd jump over the ropes, and it was an amazing era for British boxing. Remember the wars that he had with Nigel Benn. The first fight he won, he stopped Benn, and the second fight Benn had that point deducted, and it was called a draw. But I personally thought Benn should have won that fight. And then you've got the wars with Benn and Watson. Watson stopped Nigel Benn, I think, in the sixth or seventh round, was it? And that was one of my favourite fights of that era, if you want me to be honest. I remember Michael Watson just doing the peekaboo style, high defence, taking all of Nigel Benn's shots. Nigel Benn, quite inexperienced at the time, coming out, throwing everything but the kitchen sink at him. And Watson just, covered up that peekaboo style and was just chopping away at Benn. Great defence. And then Benn just blew himself out, and then he managed to just get the KO. But what a fantastic era for British boxing it was. It was just mesmerising. And now we've got Chris Eubank Jr. coming up, and we've got Conor Nigel Benn. Now, with regards to Chris Eubank Jr., because you can't mention Benn without mentioning the Eubank, you can't mention the Eubank without mentioning the Benn. But with the Chris Eubank situation, we know the little history that he's got, fighting Billy Joe Saunders, Chudinov, and then he was given an opportunity to fight for Daniel Jacobs' WBA title, and then he's going for Nick Blackwell in the British title, and that fight's coming up sometime soon, March 26th, I believe, and I've done posts about it, so you can go and check them out. But one thing I will say about Chris Eubank is he has got a likability about him, okay, and also he's like a Marmite character as well, so you can either like him or you hate him. I mean, personally, when you look at Chris Eubank Jr., he comes into the ring and he does the whole jumping over the ropes and the whole posing thing, and he does what his dad does. And a lot of people think that he's copying his dad, and he is. But sometimes when you try and emulate someone and copy someone, when it doesn't come over, you can read it. You can tell if someone's just trying to be or play act or copy someone else's style. But with Chris Eubank Jr., I think he is naturally like that. He's naturally quite brash, naturally confident. He's got a lot of self-belief, and you can see by the way he walks into the ring, he's got this sort of steel gaze about him, and he looks like a tough kid, and he is a tough kid in the ring. And I think the whole posing, jumping over the ropes, I think it's not a put on. I think it's genuinely him. I think he's genuinely, followed in his father's footsteps in that regard. And he brings excitement to the division. I think it's because he's a Eubank. I sat there and I thought to myself, why is it that he, seems to bring in so much interest? Is it because he's a Eubank? Is it because he poses? Is it, what is the reason? What is it about him that everybody seems to be interested in? And I think it's very good. And he said something recently about, being like a Marmite type character. You either like him or you hate him. But either way you look at it, you're going to pay to watch him win or you're going to pay to watch him lose. Either way, you're going to be watching his fights. I, for one, can't wait for Eubank to fight, especially when he's coming to fight Nick Blackwell coming soon. And I think that's going to be a really close fight. And I don't, I wouldn't write off Nick Blackwell. Do not sleep on Nick Blackwell. This is going to be a tough fight. They sparred in the past before, and I saw a recent interview where Nick Blackwell was saying, I sparred Chris Eubank. He's not that strong, and I'm just going to be on him. Pressure. And I'm 110% for this fight and ready for this fight, and I think that I'm going to beat Chris Eubank. So I don't think it's going to be an easy fight for Chris Eubank. I think it's going to be tough, and I hope that Eubank doesn't underestimate him. But either way, I think Eubank wins that fight. But it's not really about Chris Eubank. I've gone off a little bit. But for me, it's really interesting because I remember being a Ben and Eubank and Watson fan, but I was reasonably young when they started their careers. So although I enjoyed it because I didn't understand the sport as much as I did, I do now. When I watch the fights for the first time, I remember being mesmerized. But when I look back, there's so much I didn't pick up on. So to kind of relive those moments with Chris Eubank fighting, it's really interesting and it's exciting, especially at the moment when British boxing is such on a high at the moment. We've got so many world champions at the moment. We've got Frampton versus Quigg coming up. We've got Anthony Joshua. We've got Chris Eubank. There's so much of a buzz around British boxing at the moment. ITV, I haven't read the report or the news article lately, but ITV is thinking about doing another deal where they're going to put boxing back on the TV. So, boxing is just making a comeback. A lot of people are saying boxing's dead, but I don't believe it. I believe boxing is making a comeback and it's never been dead and it will never die. But yeah, so it's interesting. So the fact that you've got Chris Eubank Jr. fighting and you've even got Collins Jr. fighting, and I even heard that Frank Bruno's son had his first amateur fight not too long ago. If you YouTube him, you can YouTube him on the pads or sparring or something, but he looks quite big. So imagine just watching them all flourish as professionals. That'll be great for British boxing, and we can relive those Ben and Eubank moments, and Bruno moments. So moving on to Conor Nigel Benn, seen a lot of interviews on him recently. I actually met Conor and Nigel Benn. It was a dream come true for me. I remember I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an evening with Nigel Benn and it was in Tooting, and I just went down there and Nigel Benn gave a speech about his life, and Conor was there and they did like a sign in, and I took a photograph with both of them, and from the interviews I think that Conor is a nice kid, and I think Chris Eubank likewise. They're both nice kids, I think, outside of the ring. And yeah, we took a picture, and when you look at the interviews, he seems like a nice kid, but he also has that fighter inside of him. It's really too early to say. I mean, he's only had 22 amateur fights, so he doesn't have a very good amateur pedigree. Now, if you look at people like Gennady Golovkin at the moment, he's had something like, how many 100 fights did he have before he turned professional? He had a very good amateur pedigree, and I think it's important to get a good amateur pedigree under your belt. But he hasn't really had that much amateur experience. He's had 22 amateur fights, and he fought the top guy in Australia, and apparently, he did really well. And you can see a lot of sparring footage out there. But he too seems like a fighter, just like Chris Eubank. He seems like he's ready to fight. He's like, you know what, I can't wait. Amateur boxing didn't cut it for me because, it's only 3 rounds. Before you can tuck in on your opponent, the referee's getting in the way and breaking you up, when really you should just let us fight till one of us is knocked out or knocked down. So you can see he's got the fight in him. It seems like he's got the fight in him. And, he was like, I want to get the 8-ounce gloves on. I don't care about my record, whether I win or lose. I want to make sure that I fight the best and bring excitement back to British boxing. I think he's going to fight at light welterweight. So that's going to be interesting. But, I mean, I saw interviews of Conor Nigel Benn on YouTube, and I heard along the line that he was going to be a turn pro within about couple of years, because he's only 19, and I heard that he was going to turn professional in the next 18 months to 2 years, but then I heard recently, after having a look through Sky Sports on the boxing section, there was a recent article by on Nigel Benn and Conor Benn, and it talks about Conor potentially making a professional debut in 2016. So that is going to be really interesting. Now, I mean, look, I am just a boxing fan with an opinion. I'm not a specialist and expert. I love the sport. I love watching the sport. So he's with like Ricky Hatton. He's training with Ricky Hatton. He's got Nigel Benn in his corner, a former middleweight, a super middleweight champion. I'm sure he's around elite boxers with great experience. But I mean, I just think you're 19 years old. What's the rush? Have a few more amateur fights. I think he said when he came to England and he he saw the fan base that Nigel Benn has, he thought, wow, this is it. And he's moved from Australia to Ilford, Essex, where his dad used to live. And he was like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. And maybe he might be caught up in the whole Ben fan base, fan club, because Nigel Benn is and Chris Eubank, they're British boxing royalty. So when he come over here and he's training with the Hattons, training with the Benns, and he's training and he's learning, he's growing, he probably thinks maybe I can become a professional. And now, I want to get in there now. And I'm just thinking, what is the rush? You're 19 years of age, give it a little while. Your father was 23 when he turned professional. I mean, it's no big deal, but I think if you're surrounded by elite people, I'm sure they know what's best for you. So if they think he's ready to turn pro at the moment, then by all means, let him do it. I, for one, am really excited. But I thought it was funny when Nigel Benn, spoke about how he got into boxing. I can't remember. It was the article's not too clear, but it talks about Conor coming in from. He had a row with his girlfriend. Comes in, and I think Nigel Benn took him down the garage just to do a little bit of pad work, and then I think Ben said something about lacing, like hitting him or something, and then he sort of chipped his tooth and broke his nose, and then after that, they had a spar, and apparently they went at it. Nigel Benn's got footage of himself and Conor actually sparring, and apparently it was 4 rounds where Nigel Benn just threw everything at him, and Nigel Benn said he took it, and he actually hit him with some great shots, and apparently Conor took it well and gave it back really well. And then from there he thought, this is it. He's definitely got what it takes. So I thought that was quite funny. But obviously Nigel Benn is going to want to put it on him to see if he can actually take it. And it looked like he passed that test with flying colours. And there's some sparring footage on Facebook and YouTube that you can catch. And you can see Conor Nigel Benn just sparring with people. And he's definitely looks quite good. So, I wish him all the best. So it looks like Conor Nigel Benn is going to turn professional in 2016, where he will fight his first fight. We don't know when it's going to be exactly. I don't know. But I, for one, am excited. And the reason I'm putting the post out there is because I'm a Ben fan, Eubank fan, and the fact that Chris Eubank Jr. is, boxing now and Nigel Benn is boxing. I don't think they'll ever meet because I think it's possible. You never know. Chris Eubank is a middleweight and Conor is coming in at light welter. So, it'll be interesting to see if that fight ever happened. But it's very, 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 very early days. I mean, it's difficult to say how successful Conor Nigel Benn will be. But I just need to put it out there because I'm a British boxing fan. And, for us, the golden age of boxing was, you had Marvelous Marvin Hagler, you had Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy the Hitman Hearns, and then we had our own little era with Ben, Eubank, Watson, Steve Collins, and so on. And it allows us to relive those moments when we've got Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor coming up the ranks now. But as I say, it's really, really early to say, but I'm just really excited about it. I'm really excited about his professional debut, and I can't wait to see what happens. Hopefully, Ben and Chris Eubank Jr.'s both do really well, do us proud, win world titles, and, it'll be really exciting to see when that fight takes place, or their professional debuts take place. And it will be nice to see Conor fighting York Hall. That'll be really good because York Hall, just get down there. He's got to fight in York Hall. It's the home of British boxing, and it'll be good to see him feature there. But anyway, I for one am really excited. Please comment in the section below. Let me know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe.